Hello and welcome to 𝗀𝐿 Bundesliga Match Day 2. We had a really entertaining first match day with Bayern Munich suffering a lot to win the first game under company, and the same old Bayer Leverkusen, defending champion, scoring in the very last minute. 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗏 scored after missing the penalty. Ronan, really interesting first match day.
It was a really exciting first match day, and like we saw and like we expect, there was lots of goals on the first match day. Obviously, those two games you've mentioned, there was plenty of goals in them, with Leverkusen again scoring in at the death. Their deal with the devil, whatever it is still ongoing. A goal in the 100th minute, 90 plus, or 101st minute, I think, even 90 plus 11 they scored in. So it's crazy. It doesn't matter how much time or how little time you give Leverkusen, they seem to come up big at the end. So their undefeated campaign is already off to a great start.
Well, I will ask you also about 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐻𝐻𝑡𝑒𝑛𝑠, for instance, rising star at Borussia Dortmund. Let's analyze everything, of course, with Ronan Murphy. Let me know in the comments who are you backing, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And now let's go on with the show. First match day on Friday. Remember that we have international break after this second match day. On Friday, we have Union Berlin, St. Pauli. Good draw, I would say, for Union Berlin. We were not very confident in Mainz. 1-1 for St. Pauli. I guess it was not the dreamt comeback after 20 years in the Bundesliga, with a defeat at home against Heidenheim. It was a relegation 6-pointer, even if we are in the first match day. Also, these two teams should be in the bottom half of the standings.
Yeah, you would imagine come the end of the season, both of these teams will be in the bottom half, because neither of them have strengthened massively. Although Union Berlin on Tuesday morning, they brought in 𝗀𝗏𝗏 from Stuttgart on loan, so that should be an interesting signing for them. So it's interesting to see kind of how Union Berlin can bounce back this season after their disappointment of last season, that they were so close to getting relegated, obviously, despite playing in the Champions League in the same season. So it's interesting to see what will happen with Union Berlin and how they will get on this season. But you will be confident in them perhaps doing a little better than last season, and maybe not being drawn into the relegation battle. And it's games like these where they should be able to kind of separate themselves against the other relegation candidate teams. St. Pauli obviously are one of those, after coming up from the second Bundesliga and then losing their manager. So they are in a kind of a state of flux themselves. After the 2-0 defeat to Heidenheim last week, 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐻𝗏𝗏𝗏, the brother of the other Eggestein in the league, he's not the only one, but he's obviously led in the Bundesliga before, but he's back in the Bundesliga, and he was talking about the difference between the first and the second division, or even the third division, is that teams like St. Pauli have to take their chances, and because they mightn't get many more chances. And he also said they're going to have to learn very quickly, because they'll need to be effective in taking their chances this season. And they just didn't take their chances that came against Heidenheim. They nearly had as much XG as Heidenheim in that game. It was 1.16 to 1.17, but they came out as 2-0 losers. So it's going to be a long season if they can't find themselves on the score sheet. And I don't think Union Berlin are going to be a team that will give away many chances. We've seen it in the past that they're usually strong defensively, and I think they'll build around that again this season. I think that's what they'll look to do, be hard to beat, and they were hard, obviously, last week for Mainz to beat. So I think Union Berlin will be a team that we'll probably see them in a lot of low-scoring games this season. St. Pauli haven't won this match away at Union Berlin since 2011, so I don't think it's really going to happen here for them. The odds look good for Union to win. A home win is coming in around 2. I think that looks good. Total goals for this one, like I say, I don't predict many are going to be in this one. Total goals under 2.5 looks a good option to me. 1.98. Union to win 1-0. I'd like to look up as well 8.5 if you're going to go out on that limb and go for just a narrow win. But I don't think St. Pauli have adjusted just yet. Maybe they will soon, but my tip for this week is for St. Pauli not to score. So Union Berlin clean sheet is 2.8.
Perhaps we see more goals in the next game. Let's jump into the busy Saturday in the Bundesliga, Frankfurt, Hoffenheim. Why am I saying this? Because 𝗵𝗵 scored a hat-trick. It was a Groundhog Day last weekend with the same old guys. And 𝗵𝗵 is one of the Bundesliga stars. Hoffenheim beat Kiel 3-2. Frankfurt played well against Dortmund. They had their chances, but at the end, they lost 2-0.
Yeah, just before Gittins gave Dortmund the lead, Frankfurt had a magnificent chance. 𝗵𝗏, he missed. It was a 0.82 xG chance, and penalties are usually only kind of that height in xG. So it was a great chance to go ahead. And then just a minute later, Dortmund took the lead. So the game could have been very different. It was kind of one of those sliding door moments for Frankfurt. And obviously they'll be hoping to bounce back here. And I think they can, because they have plenty of strike power themselves. Hoffenheim, like we saw, they have plenty of strike power themselves. 𝗵𝗵 scored a hat-trick. Hoffenheim in that game, they generated 3.74 xG. So even aside from 𝗵𝗵's hat-trick, they had Adam 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝐧𝐽, who's after coming in from Leverkusen. He was in among the chances himself. He had 0.85 xG himself. So this is the one where there were lots of chances in that game. They obviously scored 3 goals. So I think this can be a match with a lot of goals in it, and 𝗵𝗵 will probably be involved again in those goals, because he's been involved in a goal in each of his last 8 Bundesliga games. All the way back to April, he's been, every game he's played in the Bundesliga, he's either got a goal or an assist. So this one looks like it should be a high-scoring affair. The last 9 meetings between the sides have all had 3 goals or more. The last 7 meetings between them have all had 4 goals or more. So this is one that usually gives us a lot of goals. So unlike the Union Berlin match that we started off the show with, this one looks like it should be a high-scoring one. Both matches last season were 3-1 wins for Frankfurt. And Frankfurt have been leaky at the back in kind of so far this season, and in pre-season they've scored and conceded in every single pre-season game except one, and the only clean sheet they kept was against an American side, Louisville City. So we can't read too much into that. So they're still kind of having problems at the back, like we saw against Borussia Dortmund. They will go ahead and take chances and probably put them away better than they should have against Dortmund. So I think both teams to score, yes, obviously looks great here, 1.55. But my tip overall for this one is total goals over 3, and that's 1.91.
Well, talking about high-scoring games, next one is Holstein Kiel, Wolfsburg. In both games, in the first match day, we saw 5 goals. Wolfsburg were really close, very competitive, especially in the second half against Bayern Munich. Mayer was the star, scoring a brace, hitting the post. He was everywhere.
He was, yeah. He was very busy. I don't think we should expect to see those sort of performances maybe every week from him, but yeah, it was a tremendous start to the season for them. And I think the only kind of blot, well, apart from the loss, obviously, is Wolfsburg. They would have wanted to get more from it, but after the match, Ralph Hasenhüttl came out and he kind of complained about the fans. He said the match at times is like a graveyard and they need to be more excited. And he was talking about how in Premier League games, when you win a free kick in a dangerous position, the kind of atmosphere in the stadium changes. And he wasn't seeing that at Wolfsburg, and he needs to kind of get that fandom back or that support. And maybe as a result, they could be better on the road this season. They could be better in away matches. Maybe they might be more up for it, because if they can put in that sort of performance against Bayern Munich in a kind of a dull, dismal kind of stadium atmosphere, perhaps they can be better when the traveling fans are really up for the match and they're going into somewhere that's difficult. And this one, I think, could be a good test for that. And Kiel, they've started the season well. I think they kind of played a bit above expectations. They created nearly 2 xG and scored 2 goals in their opening game, and it seems like it was kind of a welcome to the Bundesliga that maybe St. Pauli didn't live up to that hype. And like Heidenheim we saw last season, some teams take to it better once they get promoted, and it was a kind of a positive showing from Kiel. But I think when you play some of the bigger teams, it can be trickier, and Wolfsburg they are kind of a Bundesliga machine. They always kind of are thereabouts. And the last time the two sides played was actually in the relegation playoff back in 2018, and Wolfsburg were a much better side over the two legs in that one. They won 3-1 at home and then 1-0 away. And one of the scorers actually that day was 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏, the Liverpool loanee at the time, and he was in the team regularly at that time. And there was another fella up front for Wolfsburg that was injured, so missed the playoffs, Victor Osimhen, who's got the subject of all this transfer rumor. So Wolfsburg had a great strike pairing back then, but hopefully they can get goals with their current strikers this time, because this one could be a match where there's a lot of goals. We saw them, like you said, both teams have played out 5-goal thrillers in their opening day. For Kiel, they've won and lost 3-2 in both their competitive games this season, so they have been conceding goals. They've been leaky at the back. Total goals over 2.75 for this one is 2. That looks good to me. Perhaps if you're even willing to go out with a bit more, total goals over 4 is 4.43. So that could be an option if you think this is going to be another 5-goal thriller. But I just like the look of a Wolfsburg win as a team against a newly promoted side. The odds look kind of very good for them, 2.23.
All right, goals and goals in the Bundesliga. Usually we see both teams to score. Let's move to the next game. Stuttgart, Mainz, two teams that disappointed us in the first match day. We expected much more from Stuttgart against Freiburg. They ended up losing 3-1. We also expected Mainz to beat Union Berlin. They ended up with a draw, but they are keeping their unbeaten record.
They are, yeah. Mainz, they're very good. Kind of in the second half of last season, like we said last week on last week's show, they would have been 7th had only the second half of the season counted. So Mainz, they seem to be a difficult team to beat, and they will be disappointed not to have won that game against Union Berlin. They had 8 shots off target, which is kind of very kind of poor shooting. So they definitely need to improve that. And Stuttgart themselves, they'll need to improve in attack, because they looked a very different team against Freiburg, the one that I had seen in Leverkusen for the Super Cup. They were intense and excited and exciting on that night in Leverkusen for the Super Cup. But they were just a bit flat against Freiburg, and 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 wasn't as impactful as perhaps they would have hoped. Obviously, he got on the score sheet, but he's obviously going to be very difficult to replace someone like 𝗍𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, but he just isn't as involved maybe outside the box as 𝗍𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 was. The goals and assists aside, he's not kind of building the play. He's not linking up the midfield and the forward quite yet. And if they are to play with both him and 𝗀𝗏𝗏, they might need to change their approach. So we'll see what Sepp Hoeneß is going to do with him now. With these forwards, can he kind of repeat what he had last season with the strike duo, or does he have to change things going forward? And it's going to be interesting to see where those goals are going to come from, because 𝗀𝗏𝗏 we know will score goals, but 𝗍𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is kind of a step up for him. And is he able for it? He'll get the goals, but will he make the team better? Will they be a better all-round team? And that's what we saw from Stuttgart last season. They were a better team on the field than perhaps they were on paper. And anyone who plays FIFA or FC 25 or whatever it's called these days will be looking at the ratings for the new game that have been leaked, and none of the players have high ratings. So this is a team that obviously came second in the Bundesliga, and nobody rates any of their players highly, because Sepp Hoeneß is such a good coach, and he'll have to show that over the next few weeks that he is able to get the best out of these players. And Mainz is never an easy game. It's always a tricky one to play against, especially the form that they've been in. But Stuttgart, they have shown enough, and I think they showed enough to me in that first game against Leverkusen in the Super Cup that they should be able to beat teams like Mainz. And the most common result in the past is 2-0 to Stuttgart in Stuttgart. Stuttgart won both games last season 3-1, and the previous game was 4-1. Mainz haven't beaten Stuttgart in this tie since 2018. So Stuttgart, I think they should have enough about them. I think they could actually surprise Mainz and turn up. They could put last week's game to bed. Stuttgart Asian handicap -2 is over 4. If you're willing to agree with me and go for a big shout on Stuttgart Asian handicap -1 is 2.05. Both teams to score, yes, always an option here, 1.7. But this one, I think after seeing the Mainz and Union Berlin game last week, which had 17 corners. I think total corners over 9.5 is a good one for this one. Freiburg Stuttgart had 9 corners itself, but Mainz and Union Berlin had 17 corners, 8 corners to 9 last week. So if Mainz are taking the same sort of wild shots as last week, we could see plenty of corners in this one again.
Interesting stats to bet on this Stuttgart-Mainz. Ronan is still a believer of Stuttgart despite the defeat in Freiburg. Next game is Bochum-Gladbach. Probably both teams deserved a little bit more in the first match day. Bochum lost to Leipzig 1-0, but they had plenty of chances actually to get something from the Red Bull Arena, and Gladbach had a great reaction in the second half after being 2-0 down against Leverkusen in the first half. They were very close to grab something from the current champions.
They were, yeah, and they were unlucky as well. They had a goal ruled out, obviously, in the first half. Tim Kleindienst, a new signing from Heidenheim, has kind of picked up where he left off. He was excellent for Heidenheim last season, and now he's shown that he is a great signing, a great acquisition for Gladbach. He ended up scoring with a ridiculous effort. A kind of, he couldn't get any lower to the ball to kind of put the ball in the net. But yeah, he had another goal ruled out, and it would have been a very different outcome had that happened. And I think Gladbach look like a team that maybe are starting to find themselves, and that's what they didn't have last season. We were talking about them so much last season, how inconsistent they were. It was hard to predict on a week-to-week basis what they'd be like. But I think the fact that they've signed cleverly and kept a lot of key players around. 𝗵𝐿 maybe will leave before the window closes, obviously, but I think they will be a team that should be a bit more consistent this season, and we should be able to predict them more solidly then on a week-to-week basis. Bochum, on the other hand, like you said, they did create chances, and they had only 3 shots which weren't blocked, and they all ended up on target. But some of the blocked shots were huge XG chances. Their highest XG chance was 0.49. Lucas Dasher had a shot blocked just on the edge of the 6-yard box that looked to be goal bound before it was blocked. So if they can kind of create more space in the box for themselves, they should be able to maybe turn these half chances into full chances, and that could help them get goals. But like we've seen in the past, Bochum, they don't really have the same sort of firepower a lot of the other teams have. In the last 7 years, Bochum have only 1 win in this tie. Gladbach have 6. And last season's 2 games, they were comfortable victories for Gladbach. Gladbach won 3-1 away and 5-2 at home. I think Bochum, like I said, they only got 3 shots that weren't blocked last week. And if they do that again, they're not really going to get any goals. I don't think both teams score no here is 2.45. And the Bundesliga isn't really a league where we say both teams score no too often. 6 out of the 9 games last week obviously had both teams score, and the average goals per game is 3.21 in the Bundesliga. There was a presentation I was at there recently, and the DFL, the Bundesliga, the German FA were talking about how the most goals of any league in Europe is the Bundesliga, and I think the second or third highest is the second Bundesliga. So Germany is usually the place for goals, but Bochum are not known for goals. So I don't think both teams are going to score in this one. Gladbach clean sheet is 4.33. Gladbach to win to 0 is 5.5 here. But I think the odds on Gladbach Asian handicap 0 look too good to look past, because that obviously gives you a double chance. It's 2.05.
Well, Bochum had a couple of clear chances against Leipzig that they should have converted. And if you don't do it, you are not getting many points in this Bundesliga. Next game, Werder Bremen, Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund won in the first game with Sahin in the new era, but they suffered a lot against Frankfurt. We had to see Gittens in the second half. He scored a great first goal. Also, the second one is good, but the first one, it was a rocket. Werder Bremen drew against Augsburg. What can you tell us about Gittens?
Yeah, I think it looks very exciting. And Shaheen said in the press conference after the game that this is what he expected to see more of. That the pair had been working together, coach and winger had been working together on providing more goals and assists, and that's what he kind of Gittens wants to identify himself as, someone who provides more goals and assists. I think he'd be used more this season. Obviously, he's more experienced, but Dortmund maybe don't have many players that can unlock a game like him. Yeah, Sancho in the past, maybe not the Sancho of recent times, but they had Sancho in the past that could do it. And he's obviously being compared to him because of his nationality and going to Borussia Dortmund at such a young age. But I think he can be a player who perhaps can make that sort of difference for Borussia Dortmund, and we should see a lot more of him. Shaheen was delighted after the game with the performance. They had 70% possession. I know we talked about Frankfurt, maybe they should have taken their chances better and the result could have been different. But Dortmund they played the way Shaheen wanted. And as a result, he agreed to give the players 2 days off after the game. So the players should be delighted with that they got some extra time off and they can use that to maybe rest and look forward to this game against Bremen, because Bremen they played a difficult kind of tiring game themselves. 𝗵𝐿𝐴 scored his second ever Bundesliga goal. He'd gone 3 seasons without scoring in the Bundesliga, so don't expect that to happen too often. But Augsburg is always a tricky one for a team like Bremen, and I think hosting Dortmund will also be a tricky one for them, because Dortmund have won each of the last 3 games between the two sides. They've 7 wins to Werder Bremen's 3 in the last 7 years, including pre-season. Dortmund have scored 2 or more goals in all of their last 5 games, so they tend to score plenty of goals. I like the look of a Dortmund win here as a result, 1.92, but I'm going to go even bigger. I think Dortmund half-time, full-time is 3. Total goals over 3.25 is a good option here, because Dortmund like scoring, and I think they will score a lot of goals this season, 1.96, but overall, I like the look of Dortmund to score in both halves at 2.3.
Let's see, they didn't score in both halves in the first game, but they got the 3 points against a good team like Frankfurt. The best game this match day, Leverkusen, RB Leipzig, 2 teams involved in the Champions League. Leverkusen, as we said, started the season on fashion, same old fashion as last season, with a late goal scored by Wirtz, but they started with a rocket by Xhaka. What a goal! The first one for Leverkusen. RB Leipzig had also a signing, scoring the only goal against Bochum, and they also saw Orban sent off in the last minutes. It was not the best performance by RB Leipzig, we have to say.
No, it definitely wasn't. And like we said, we're talking about Bochum, they actually had less XG than Bochum. They didn't even create a goal, and XG was 0.94. Nusa's goal, a great goal as it was a 0.12 XG chance. So the statisticians didn't expect that one to go in, but it was a great start to his career at Leipzig, and it will be a step up for him this week having to play Bayer Leverkusen, because they just seem to pull wins, or they don't seem to be defeated, and the bookies should start offering odds on maybe what minute Leipzig are going to score their late winner in, because it's always 90 plus 3 or 90 plus 7 or 90 plus 11 in this one. So yeah, it seems to be that Leverkusen can't be beaten, and now their unbeaten run in the Bundesliga is 35 games, every game last season, the first game of this season, and amazingly the last game they lost was the last game of the previous season. It was a 3-0 loss to Bochum in the final game of the 2022-23 season, so they haven't lost since then. So they're going to obviously extend their own record, because no one has ever done it before, invincible. So they're going to look for 2 invincible seasons, but it's going to be tricky. But in Leverkusen at home, it's a long time since they've lost at home. They haven't lost in 32 home games, so I don't think that one is going to end here, especially with someone like Granit Xhaka, like you said, only scoring rockets. He only seems to score blistering, amazing goals. That was his 4th goal from outside the box this year in the league, and only Phil Foden actually has more in any of Europe's top 5 leagues with 5. So if the ball falls to him outside the box, the goalkeeper just start moving towards the corner and hope to get it in time, because it seems to be always going into the goal. And Florian Wirtz, like you said, he scored twice. He missed a penalty, but he scored a rebound. But that's on 2 goals in the league, and he should be aiming to do better than the 18 goals he scored last season, because I think he can. I think Leverkusen are happy to have him there. We saw at the Euros he can be a difference maker for Germany, and we've seen him time and time again kind of do it for Leverkusen, but he can even move on to the next level. I think he's been given that kind of responsibility now at the club, and that will make him just an even more kind of lethal player for them, and he can be a huge difference maker. Xabi Alonso has full trust in him, so it will be interesting to see how he progresses this season. And I think it's going to be an even bigger season from him from what we've seen in the past. Leverkusen obviously have the cup against �𝐿𝐳𝐺𝐶 because of the Super Cup this week, so we might see a lot of rotation in that. You might see some of the big names play. It's worth keeping an eye on that one to see who does play and how that might affect the team for the weekend if they pick up any injuries or anything like that. So, but I still think even with that game, they should have enough to beat RB Leipzig. This one looks to be a high-scoring match. It always tends to be, but Leverkusen won both games between the two sides 3-2 last season. Total goals over 3.25 here is 2.1. Correct score 3-2 again. It's 19.5. But it's hard for me to look past any time the Leverkusen win is this high. It's hard to look past the odds on a Leverkusen win because, like you said, it's just going to happen eventually. It mightn't happen straight away, but it'll happen eventually.
When it happens so many times, it's not luck anymore. It's about being constant and work hard for the win. Well, great game. This one, we have two more games on Sunday. Heidenheim, Augsburg. Heidenheim, great start of the season because they beat Pauli and also in Europe. Remember that they are involved in the conference and they got also a positive result. Augsburg drew with Werder Bremen. What can we expect in this game?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the conference game for Heidenheim might be a crucial one for them. Obviously, getting into the group stage of the Conference League would be huge for them. So that will be one to keep an eye on. I don't think that we will see the same that we see with Leverkusen, the kind of a B team being played in the midweek game. I think they'll play a lot of their stronger players, and that could make things easier for Augsburg if it goes to extra time or anything like that. So it's worth keeping an eye on that before you obviously make any bets going into this one. But yeah, Heidenheim, they were very impressive in the opening game against Pauli, and Paul Warner, who's joined on loan from Bayern Munich, he scored his first Bundesliga goal. He's obviously made this step up. He was scored 5 in 23 for 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏 last season on loan in the second division. Followers of Oddspedia will obviously know 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 from the documentary we had last season, which is still worth a watch about them getting promoted to the second tier. It's quite an interesting watch if you're interested in German football and you haven't seen it yet. So I would highly recommend that. You should find it on our YouTube channel, obviously. But yeah, Augsburg, I think they put in a good performance against Bremen. Samuel Asende scored his first Bundesliga goal. Obviously, he's been around different leagues in Europe. He played in second division. He played in the Portuguese top flight, but you were kind of waiting to see could he convert some of his kind of goal ratios to a higher division, and maybe he will be able to because he started the season off strongly. Heidenheim, they haven't lost any game since April, which I think is an amazing stat for a team who only got promoted to the Bundesliga last season. That includes friendlies. They didn't even lose any of their friendlies. They haven't lost in Europe. They haven't lost in the league. They were obviously out of the cup by then. So yeah, they haven't lost. The last time they lost was RB Leipzig, I think it was in April, and they just are on this kind of unbeaten run that is going under the radar at the moment, and it probably will continue here as long as they can get past Häcken in the Conference League on Thursday night. And there was only 2 draws in week 1. There was Augsburg were one of them, and Mainz and Union Berlin was the other one. So a draw here, I like to look up 3.72, but with Heidenheim unable to be beaten, just like Leverkusen, Heidenheim Asian handicap 0 is my tip for this one, 1.87.
All right, they won 2-1 in Sweden in that conference game. Again, on Thursday, they have to finish the job and qualify for the group stages. And the last game in this match day before the international break is Bayern Munich Freiburg. First game for Vincent Kompany at home. He had a very tough start against Wolfsburg. The team disconnected in the beginning of the second half. They conceded 2 goals. Luckily for them, they were able to come back, and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 scored the winner. Freiburg showed a great start as well, winning and beating Stuttgart, as we said at the beginning of the video. Kubler scored a brace. Any difference from this company's Bayern Munich to the Tuchel one, or still early days?
I think it's early days. I think the big difference with Company will be maybe he won't be as divisive a figure as Thomas Tuchel. Like we said before, we might hear a bit less of him. He seems to be closer to the players. I think the players respect him. Obviously, they respect Tuchel from what he has done as a manager, but I think they also respect Company as a player, what he has done as a player, and he can kind of get involved in the training sessions. And you've seen that from some of the media that Bayern Munich have been put out about Company and how he's getting on with the players and the way he speaks to the players and things like that. So I think the Company effect, we will see it, but it'll take time, obviously, and he can't really legislate for things like 𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐲 kind of having a disastrous performance like he did against Wolfsburg. He made the wrong decision a few times and put Bayern Munich under a lot of pressure, and he will need to get rid of those kind of issues. And you think as his own playing career shows, he should be able to kind of lead by example there. So maybe that will help iron out Bayern's problems at the back, because we know they're very capable of scoring. Like you said, 𝗵𝗵𝗏 came and scored a winner. He's averaging a goal involvement every 59 minutes in the Bundesliga this year. Obviously, he's not starting as many games as maybe he would like, but when he does come on, he is getting involved in the goals. So if he starts, he could be worth a look at maybe a anytime goal scorer bet here. Could be a good one for that. And Freiburg, you said Kugler got 2 goals, one from long range, was 0.02 xG. His best ever seasons before now were 2 goals. So I don't think he's going to score 2 goals on a regular basis. I think this could be him for the season. We might see no goals from him in the next 33 games, but we'll see how it goes for him. The last 7 years in this match, Bayern Munich have won 10 times. It was 3 draws. Freiburg have only won once, and that was in the cup. So they haven't beaten Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga. I don't think they're going to beat them here, because I think Bayern Munich should be better in this match. Musiala will be key for them. He's got 10 goals last season. He's already got 1 this season. Like I said with Wirtz, I think we'll see a lot more of him. I think he'll be a big player for Bayern Munich this season. I think under Company, he especially will be a big player. We probably won't see as much as Thomas Müller anymore, but Thomas Müller, like Harry Kane said, he's one of the biggest football brains on the planet. So he will have an effect. I think Company will rely on him maybe in the dressing room than on the pitch. And I think Bayern Munich can improve as the season goes on. And I think they'll improve immediately in this game after that kind of shaky win in week 1. I think they should win this one comfortably. So I like to look up half-time, full-time, home, 1.62 for Bayern Munich, because Bayern won 3-0 at home last season and 5-0 at home the season before. All their last 2 friendlies and cup games are all wins to 0. Bayern Munich clean sheet is 2.25 here. There were 3 clean sheets on Matchday 1, so Bayern Munich have a good chance of getting 1 here, I think, against Freiburg. Bayern Munich, so that's why my tip overall is Bayern Munich to win to 0, 2.45.
Maybe also Harry Kane to score. He was involved in the last 2 goals of Bayern Munich, even if he couldn't score in the opening game in this Bundesliga. Let's finish the video. Ronan, your safe bet was correct last week. This one will be?
Yeah, this one will be Leverkusen versus Leipzig, over 2.25 goals, 1.39.
You like safe bets involving RB Leipzig and your ACCA?
My ACCA is a 3 Asian handicap 0 bets. Union Berlin Asian handicap 0, Wolfsburg and Gladbach. That's a total of 4.82 for those.
All right. Thank you, Ronan. Thanks, everyone, for watching. See you. Bye-bye.